Welcome to TYT Sports, Jason Francis. So in light of the terrible, terrible news that came from Charleston, South Carolina, in which 9 innocent victims were shot in a church, we have to come to the point of crossing sports and politics. This does happen, and we've covered these before. Where this comes down to, though, is it comes to the Confederate flag, which has flown over states and cities in the southern United States. NASCAR, which I want to transition into a huge, huge sport in the South. So much so that it's mind-boggling to me that NASCAR is one of the most watched in this country alone, and does have the Daytona 500, and then you even get to like IndyCar racing, the Indy 500, are 2 of the most watched and attended sporting events next to the Kentucky Derby, and get more, I've heard more, than the Super Bowl does in terms of its mass attendance. Not worldwide, but in terms of the mass attendance. Now, Dale Earnhardt Jr., the pride of NASCAR, he's one of the biggest drivers in NASCAR for years. We don't cover a lot of NASCAR on TYT Sports, but interestingly enough, Dale Earnhardt Jr. came out in support of taking down the Confederate flag, to which he said, "I think it's offensive to an entire race. It does nothing for anybody to be there flying, so I don't see any reason. It belongs in the history books, and that's about it." It doesn't stop there. NASCAR chairman and commissioner Brian France came out and said, "We want to go as far as we can eliminate the presence of that flag. I personally find it an offensive symbol, so there's no daylight how we feel about it and our sensitivity to others who feel the same way. We're working with the industry to see how far we can go to get that flag to be disassociated entirely from our events." Now, Darlington Raceway of recent, 3 weeks ago, there was a race there. Confederate flag flying over the racetrack. Not just fans bringing it in. That's like pole position level. And this flag, as some want to defend as a symbol for the South, just simply don't understand it's a symbol for racism.
Of course it is. And for one, it shouldn't take a massacre of what just happened
to realize that.
To realize that it's still it's there in history. It's there written in the books what this stands for. There's still street names in South Carolina that are named after generals who were advocates for slavery. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's so baffling to me. Obviously, I come in from an outside perspective, but I think that gives me an advantage because I can see clearly, still clear signs of racism in this country. And you want to take everything you can to remove it. And one, you know, my hatred for politics intersecting with sports when it doesn't need to be. What is that flag standing for in a sporting world?
Right.
What is it standing for? It's not an American flag. American flags flying above your sport is great. And it's what happens in the UK as well, is you'll see people flying flags, and this surrounds everything as well. So we look at the game in which a drone was thrown across the field between Albania and I think Serbia, and the flag was dropped in the middle of the field. And it stood for a time that many people may take a lot of, I don't know, courage from, because it's believed to them, but it's got no place in sports. Simply put, none of these issues should be brought into sports, especially for this. And something like NASCAR's taking a stand, which I think is great because it hits home to all those narrow-minded people that still think that this country should pay homage to that era. That's so fucking stupid. Why would you pay homage to that era? We're trying to move forward, trying to be progressive, we're trying to change things up. Why would you want to stand by a flag that just because you believe it stood for something when everyone knows what that flag means? And if you want to remove it, you have to remove it from sports, you have to remove it from the industries that still hold it so close to the heart so that people will stand up and make a change.
Amazingly, Walmart recently just pulled all their Confederate flag merchandise. The fact that there was Confederate flag merchandise, to me, is mind-boggling, but it also gave sports fans, especially of NASCAR, and I'm not trying to but not stereotype them, but yes, I believe there's pictures of tailgates in American football, for the Carolina Panthers, for even places for college football games, including Alabama, in those type of situations where there were fans flying Confederate flags around their tailgate. And to me, it's not so much a disassociation. It should never have been associated with the sport in the first place. It's just the culture that NASCAR has bred was fans of Southern politics, at least when it goes back to the Civil War, those type of Southern politics, which, again, as you mentioned, if you think that there's no racism problem in our country, you're ignorant. In addition to that, John Calipari, famous, fantastic basketball coach of your Kentucky Wildcat Transformers, as you always mention to him, who came 2 wins short of a perfect season, also came out in support of pulling down this flag. I mean, it is like essentially bolted to the flag post in South Carolina in many places, and it's going to be difficult to take down. Burn it up there.
Yeah.
It should be done.
Show the sign, yeah. And it's still, another thing that's surprising is it's still on a lot of registration plates.
Yeah, I mentioned that too, yeah.
That is just, it's
college football
insane.
fields, including UNLV, have had them as well. And again, I hate when sports and politics cross, but as Ben Mankiewicz has said multiple times on this platform and on the main show, the Young Turks, sports and politics have crossed over millions of times.
Yes.
As he always mentions, what Jackie Robinson did for baseball, that's political.
Yeah.
As much as it is a groundbreaking day in sports history, especially American sports history, it's political, the same as this is. So it's nice to see. It's the right steps necessary for somebody like NASCAR and their executives to realize that this is not okay.
Yeah,
this is an issue that needs to be fixed. And I love that Dale Earnhardt came out and said this, because he is someone that has been born and raised in Southern culture.
And it's someone who you imagine what people would look to stand by these ridiculous beliefs that they have. And I agree with what Ben always, we have this discussion before and we talk about it. Sometimes you cannot help, but obviously these two things cross in paths. And what you like to see is athletes taking a stand with the controversy that's happened throughout this year. A really awful year in terms of what we can see is just hate crimes and things that are just going around in this country that have to be brought light. And who better to bring them to light than athletes?
Yes.
You know, when you've got athletes that are wearing shirts to wear and to try and basically just get that message across. But I'm still baffles me that a sport, this flag has been associated with a sport, no matter what people think about their culture. It's still a sport. It's supposed to promote, sports are supposed to
family, friendly environments.
Fair play, sportsmanship. Any of those things are associated with that flag?
No. No. So it's the wrong symbol. One of the things I wanted to mention, though, and in terms of like the youth, these younger kids out there, these 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, when you were a strapping young lad, Francis, you looked up to probably Glasgow Celtic players and would follow them with whatever their beliefs were because you wanted to be them.
Yeah.
Right? So the great thing about someone like Dale Earnhardt coming out and doing this is he's going to reach a younger audience for them to follow than any senator, than any NASCAR chairman. They're not going to know who Brian France is. We do. But those 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds who really can be influenced at a young age with someone like Dale Earnhardt leading that way is exactly what needs to be done.
It's because you just want kids to be brought up in a sporting industry and just in a world that is eradicated from hate. Is basically, they don't have to look at a flag like that and ask, well, I wonder what that is. What does that stand for? And then there'll be people out there that will try and manipulate them to think that it stands for something that it doesn't. So if you just start removing it from history, just remove that flag out. Yes, it can be taught in history classes, and then it can be taught rightfully so what it stands for.
Like other awful things that have happened in this world, it belongs in the history books. Like we don't not talk about
it's
Holocaust
the same thing. Why
because
Nazi flags are still they're still flown around in a lot of football matches. People use them to stand up for what they believe in as a team. And I don't care if there's a part of the Nazi movement that you think that resonates the same as your team. That flag stands for just the worst atrocities that have ever happened in our world and hate. So don't fucking fly that on a sporting field. Don't fly it anywhere.
Sports intersect with politics all the time. We have no choice but to cover these things for you guys to the best of our ability. If you want to see more on the entire Confederate flag issue that's going on, and of course the awful, awful atrocity that happened in Charleston, South Carolina, which our hearts deeply, deeply go out to the families and friends of those who lost loved ones in that situation. Please, we urge you to head over to the Young Turks, youtube.com/the Young Turks, to check out videos there. Jenk, Anna, John, Ben have been doing coverage for about 2 weeks on it. Please follow it. Please give it a like. Check it out. But for now, leave your comments and thoughts regarding Confederate flag in sports and any flag related for sports and hate. Leave those comments in the comment section below. Follow Francis on Twitter @Francis_Maxwell, @JasonRubin91. And of course, check out TYT Sports, also on Facebook, facebook.com/TYT Sports.